Igor Merzelov. Night sound. At night, all sounds are louder. Alexey was working in the hall, and the tapping of the keyboard, soft and almost inaudible during the day, crept stealthily into his brain. It's like hitting the cerebellum with a cat's paw. Bail, bail, bail. Sidney Sheldon's novel was interesting, but the incessant tinkling made it hard to read. With a sigh, Lida put down the paperback book, kicked off the blanket, and swung her feet to the cold floor. She found the fluffy slippers with her toes, running her heel over them as usual, letting the fur tickle her skin. Only then did she get up, shivering, throw a knitted jacket over her shoulders, and leave the bedroom. At the end of a short corridor, a gap between the floor and the hall door glowed faintly. Lida, wincing at the loud shuffle of shoes, went to the door and opened it. The hall was dark. The desk lamp illuminated only one end of it. Alexey's figure was dark against the background of the monitor. "You coming soon?" He turned around. She saw the guilty smile on his face. "Sorry, fish. I have some work to do. You go to bed, go to sleep." He stretched with a crunch, arms outstretched, and pulled the hood of his sports jacket over his head. "I'll have to sleep," Lida sighed. She went back to the bedroom and crawled under the covers. There was no resentment. No, of course not. She knew exactly what the mortgage had cost them. Still half empty, as autumn has shown, and bitterly cold, but still its own. Lida herself was now looking for a part-time job. No, she wasn't going to be offended. But she had a right to be upset, didn't she? Trying unsuccessfully to keep warm under the thick blanket, Lida curled up in a ball. "Oh, why is it so cold?" "I couldn't sleep." In any case, Lida was sure that she hadn't slept a wink. But suddenly, there was a sharp click of a light switch, and the bedroom was plunged into darkness. Lida shivered, then realized that she was drowsy after all. Alexey has already finished his work, turned off the light, rustles clothes in the dark. The mattress shook as her husband settled under the covers behind her. Lida wanted to turn to him, but suddenly Alexey's hot hand was on her shoulder, holding her back. He pressed himself against her back and froze. It became warm, even hot somehow from surprise. Lida struggled to turn to face him again, and once again the hand on her shoulder held her back. "What's the matter with you?" Lida asked. He didn't answer, just sighed heavily. "Don't you have enough energy left for your wife?" Again there was no answer, but hot fingers gently stroked her shoulder. Lida froze, feeling his breath on the back of her neck. A comfortable numbness came over her. However, as the minutes passed, Alexey's immobility began to worry him. His fingers paused, lightly squeezing her shoulder, and nothing but those fingers reminded her that her husband was lying next to her. For the third time, Lida wanted to turn around, as if to warn her off. Her fingers tightened. It was probably even a little painful, but Lida didn't say anything. She found that she was too lazy not only to move, but also to move her tongue. Well then, there was nothing to do but sleep. There were already pictures flashing before my eyes. They were grayish, as if they had faded. I don't think it was a day's experience. Something whimsical, fantastic rose before the eye. It was interesting and a little disturbing. And then there was the sound. It didn't fit in with the visual images. Lida tensed. Suddenly, her heart lurched in her chest. She realized that the sound had been there long before the faded images had formed in her tired brain. A familiar sound, just like a cat's paw on the cerebellum. Bail, bail, bail. The dream vanished, as if blown away by the wind. Lida gasped and opened her eyes. The faint glow from the streetlights that filtered through a crack in the curtains revealed only the vague outlines of a wardrobe and a bedside table. The tapping of the keys never stopped, clear and distinct, perhaps the only sound in the night. Oh no, there was also the trembling breath of Lida herself. She couldn't hear who was lying behind her. No matter how hard she strained her ears, not the slightest hint of sound came from over her shoulder. "Come on, there's no one there." Lida almost laughed, realizing that Alexey's appearance had simply been a dream. And his strange behavior and the way she started to fall asleep, it was already a dream. And his fingers on her shoulder? There are none. My body was numb from lying in the same position for so long. There were no fingers on my shoulder, and if it felt anything, it was an imaginary sensation. Lida's mind has just fantasized Alexey next to her, so her body responds to her fantasies. Bail, 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 bail. Come on, Lida told herself. What are you waiting for? Before you fall asleep and have another bad dream, turn around. Make sure the bed next to you is empty. After all, everything is so clear, so ridiculously simple. But Lida didn't laugh. She was afraid, as scary as I've ever been in my life. Bail, 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 bail. Instead of turning around, she gripped the edge of the bed and slowly pulled her leg, which was lying on top of her, to her stomach, and straightened the other leg. Even though her body was numb from lying in the same position for so long, Lida could feel the blanket moving all over her skin. Only on her shoulder, where she imagined Alexey's fingers, the skin felt nothing. Of course, there's nothing there, Lida told herself. It can't be. Nothing. No one. She didn't jump out of bed, but rather threw herself out from under the covers, like a rock from a catapult. She broke out of the warm, fear-soaked darkness into another darkness, cold and also fear-soaked, a dimly lit bedroom with streetlights. Now, it was impossible to calm down with autosuggestion. All too clearly, she felt a hand slipping limply from her shoulder. Lida grabbed the door handle. My body vibrated with terror and demanded to run without looking back. An instinct left over from primitive times. Do not reason, run away, and pass on to other generations the same imperious order of instincts. Danger run, fear run. However, something has changed since primitive times. Blunt, weaken. Without hearing a sound behind her, Lida froze, already gripping the door handle. She turned slowly. She must know. A rumpled bed, a pillow with a dent in its head, a pile of blankets. There's something on the pillow, something sticking out from under the blanket. Lida was sure it was a hand, but the confidence quickly evaporated. It was too dark. The eye picked out only sharp outlines. Whether someone was still in bed or not, I couldn't tell. Turn on the light, Lida told herself. Fool, just turn on the light. Everything will become clear. Instead, she turned the handle softly, so as not to rattle the lock, and slipped out of the bedroom. It's too scary. The floor of the corridor was still illuminated by the strip from under the hall door. The hurried tapping of the keyboard was clearly audible. An involuntary smile played on Lida's lips. This is how Alexey types when everything works out in his head. The case is coming to an end, and he is in a hurry to finish it. Lida crossed the corridor and quietly pressed the handle of the back door. It's not going to be scary anymore. Now Alexey will calm her down, tell her that she's stupid, half asleep, imagining horrors for herself. And this will be true, because, in fact, it can't be that someone quietly went into their apartment, went to bed instead of Alexey, and just lay there. The room was still in the same cold gloom, filled with the clatter of keys. Alexey's figure was also clearly drawn against the background of the monitor. With a sob of relief, Lida ran to him and grabbed him by the shoulder. Then she froze. It was as if her fingers were resting on a statue. Alexey was motionless and hard as granite, or rather like ice. It was as if all the cold in the world was coming from him, and the hooded sports jacket slid over him as if it had been thrown over an icy surface. Lida didn't know how long she stood there, feeling her fingers grow cold, and not even daring to scream, even though a blind cry of horror was bursting from her chest. Maybe no more than 3 seconds had passed. And then the one who was sitting in Alexey's place turned around. I wish he hadn't. It would have been better if Lida had stayed up all night, dying of fright and cold. A bluish-white mask, vaguely similar to Alexey's, peered at her from under the hood. But it wasn't even this that finally broke Lida and made her run around the apartment howling, bumping into furniture, and not finding a way out. For some reason, the most disgusting thing to her shocked mind was that the maddening sound that had started it all wasn't keyboard tapping at all. It was the creature's dancing teeth that rattled viciously, as if from a chill